Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Loyal PawsCast. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today we are going to be diving into the topic of rewards in dog training and how to use them successfully. So, one of the first things that I wanted to cover was why do we use rewards in training at all? I get this question a lot because a lot of people think that as soon as you start using rewards in training, that you have to carry around treats for the rest of your dog's life. And while in part I believe that that should be true, you should always have, something to reward your dog. I don't believe that you always have to have a bag full of goodies at your beck and call it every time. So, why do we use rewards in training? So, using rewards in training gives us an upper hand. It allows us to hold value in the environments where we otherwise may not. So, when you take a bouncy, curious puppy out to the dog park who is excited to greet and pay attention to everything but you, you're going to need a little bit of an upper hand in creating value for your attention in those exciting and new or maybe even scary situations. It also helps us create positive associations for our dogs in certain situations and environments where they may find it scary or they may be fearful or anxious. So, in those situations, when our dogs are fearful or anxious, or maybe they're just not totally into the situation we are putting them in, we need to make them feel comfortable and create a positive association. And food is a very simple and easy way and very effective way to do that for our dogs. It also allows us, when we use food in training, it also allows us to tell our dog they're doing a good job because who doesn't like being told that they're doing a good job, right? And it helps us create a positive connection for the cues when we ask them to sit. They get the reinforcement. It equals, yes, of course I'll do that again. So a behavior that is reinforced is way more likely to be repeated than one that isn't reinforced, right? So that's the basic principle of why we use rewards in training. It will reinforce behaviors that we want versus letting them just do self-rewarding behaviors like barking incessantly and getting self-rewarded for unwanted behaviors like digging or barking. So that is why we start to use rewards in training, because when we are able to use something that tells our dog that they're doing a good job and can create positive associations to what we want them to enjoy or what we want them to do again, then it's going to be way easier than trying to use a trial and error type of training. The next question would be, how do we use a training reward effectively in training? So I get this a lot because I feel that a lot of the time when I'm talking to clients or just anybody about when to reward their dog or how to reward their dog, or maybe, there's so many questions, and you really have to be using rewards effectively and in a proper way in order for it to be effective, right? So there is certain ways that the do's and don'ts of using training rewards, right? We don't want to reward too much for something that we don't want to see, or our timing can't be off. Things like that is how we will use them effectively. So using a reward that your dog enjoys is a good way to use it effectively. So you have to find your dog's currency, something that they love. Because if you're not using a training reward that they are like kind of they could take it or leave it, then your training won't come along as nicely if your dog is kind of like meh about what you're giving them. You'll also want to adjust their diets so that they're not being overfed and they're not like, this is kind of boring because they're too full all the time. Now, I'm not saying that you want to starve your dog because you definitely don't want to do that, but you definitely don't want to have them get overweight or anything like that because you're feeding them cheese and hot dogs all the time. So you want to give them the healthiest treats that you can that they enjoy, and you also want to adjust their diet so that they're not going to have negative side effects to training with treats. To ensure that you have good timing and you're able to mark the behavior so that you are rewarding the proper behavior. So, a lot of the time, you will get things like people will mark a sit, but sometimes they will mark the behavior before the dog is even sitting. And sometimes that will create confusion for the dog. So, why am I getting this treat? And then people will go, well, my puppy just won't sit on cue. I don't understand. And this is going to come down to the marking and timing of your behavior and your rewards. So, you need to make sure that that timing is correct and that you're not going to confuse your dog. We also are going to use them effectively, or to be able to use them effectively, we want to have a plan of action when it comes to weaning the food lures and rewards, the treats, and transitioning to life rewards. So by weaning, I don't mean that your dog's never going to get a treat again for anything that he does in life, but you want him to be able to do those things without you waving and bribing them to do them. So we want to take away the bribery and just have them create a positive association with those cues that we've taught them and let them do them just for going outside or doing them for realistic daily life activities that are still rewarding to them. So it doesn't mean they'll never get a treat again for that cue or that situation, but we're just going to make it so that we don't always have to give them a treat in order for them to do it. So there's a right and a wrong way to create that reward for your dog. So, another question that I get quite frequently is, what rewards do I use in training? So a lot of people go, I don't even know what rewards to use. And if you go to a pet store, you just get kind of overwhelmed with the amount of different varieties of rewards there are for your dog, right? So this comes down to, you have to use the right rewards at the right times to be successful. So using your dog's kibble is great. I use my dog's kibble when we are inside, when we're out and about on our ranch, on our farm. So I mean, they love it. They'll do anything for their food. But when it comes to asking your dog to do something in a situation where you know it's going to be a little bit harder for them, for instance, asking Rambo not to greet somebody when we're on a walk is really hard for him. Or when we have guests coming over, right? So I'm going to need to up the ante with a higher value reward like peanut butter or hot dogs, something that I know that he is overjoyed of getting instead of just, his boring old kibble that he gets quite frequently, right? So we really want to choose those rewards wisely and choose them according to the situations that they're in. So if you're just training your puppy and you're training them to, sit down, shake a paw, and you're doing it in your own home in a non-distracted environment, then you can use a lesser value like reward, like their kibble. You can use their daily meal. So at supper time, you can sit down with them and hand feed them their meals so that they will earn their meals for one, and they will also be getting, their treats. Will be their food. So you can do that indoors. And, when you're outdoors and there's lots of distractions and stuff, you may need to up your ante a little bit and get a higher value reward. So you can also choose a few different rewards and mix them up. So find what your dog likes, rank them from least to most favorite, and use them according to the situation so that you have a plan of action and you're not, confused. So if you have an action plan and you know what you're going to do in certain situations, then you're going to be more likely to be successful in those situations, right? Because if you're just making it up on the fly, then it can be a little bit messy. So if it's a cue that they don't seem overly motivated to participate in, then you can use a higher value reward. If they seem happy about the cue and you're in a calm environment, then you can use the kibble. So if you want more guidance on this, you can head to our blog that coincides with this episode for a download of our reward ranking system. So that will kind of help you rank their rewards from least to favorite for your own dog so that you have a plan and you can keep this on your phone once it's filled out, or you can print it out and put it on the fridge or the kitchen table. So it's always awesome to use a reward mixture. So in training sessions, you can also reward the best responses with the highest value rewards, right? And the passable ones will get the lowest value rewards. So teaching them exactly what you would like to see more of. So this can help, if you are doing it correctly, it can help your dog to strive to get the highest value rewards, giving you only the best responses that they have to offer, right? So this will also help you gauge on how well your dog is actually doing with the cue. because if they aren't doing so well, their responses won't be that great. But if they are doing really well, then their responses will be super awesome every time, and you might get a little, kind of a passable response here and there. So it's a good way to give them more variety in their training. What do I do if my dog doesn't enjoy his own food? Now, I get this question a lot, and I also deal with clients that have dogs that maybe aren't as food motivated as well. So the first thing you want to do is try your best to find a food that your dog does enjoy. So you're going to want to look high and low. You're going to look at wet food. You're going to look at, you know, wet foods that is like human that you can mush up for like humans, like pumpkin or peanut butter and things like that. You're going to try to look just high and low. Look everywhere for a food that they will at least get motivated by. You're also going to want to feed them on a schedule. So if you're free feeding, that will affect your dog's food drive. If they just have food out all the time, then why do they have to work for it, right? So if you're going to be using rewards and training, I highly recommend keeping them on a food schedule so you can feed them twice a day or 3 times a day, as long as they're getting their daily nutrition. And they're going to have more food motivation so that they aren't going to have food always out and available to them. So they're going to be a little bit more willing to work for it. The next thing that you can try is pairing the food with something that he loves. So this will create that positive association to the food and give food value for the dog. So if he isn't that crazy about a certain food, then you can pair it with playtime, or you can give him a piece of food and then pet him. If he really loves belly rubs, give him the food while you're petting him. Do things like that so that they're going to create a positive association to getting food, and they're going to be more accepting of food at that time because they know and they think that that thing like the petting or playtime is coming right after they get that food. So you can try that as well. Another thing that you can use is other motivators that your dog enjoys. So you can use toys or attention or playtime or greeting people or outside time or bones. There's so many different things that we can do to motivate our dog. We just have to find our dog specific motivator. So if your dog loves greeting people on walks, use that as a way to get your dog's attention and create a reward system based on him getting to meet other dogs and other people. So if your dog isn't enjoying the food on their walks, you can try, or at any point in their training, then you can try a few of those and see if they work, or maybe all of them. Dogs also sometimes seem to respond to squeeze tubes a lot better as well. So sometimes you'll notice dogs will, owners will be carrying like a squeeze tube, and you can freeze these so they last a little bit longer. But you need to get the right consistency into the squeeze tube. So you can mix up like tuna and like peanut butter or something, and you need to get the right consistency for that squeeze tube. So it's kind of an art so that it actually squeezes instead of getting too runny and just runs out, or it's too thick to come through. But your dog, usually, if it's more the smellier, the better. So in squeeze tubes, then it's less mess. You can just put it in your pocket. So they're super easy to maintain when you're out and about and you're training. So it's also awesome for dogs that really like nipping at your fingers too. So that brings us to the next one, and that is, when do you wean rewards? So I get this question a lot. Of course, as a dog trainer, if we're using treats, there's also the question of, do I have to carry around a pocket of hot dogs for my dog's entire life? So the answer is, to a point, yes. You're going to always want to have some kind of food reward for your dog if you're out and about. That is personal choice, but I really enjoy having that in case my dog does a behavior that I really want to reward. I want to give them the best reward possible. So if food is that best reward possible, then I'm going to carry a little bit with me anywhere I go. That's just part of being a dog owner. But once your dog is repeating the cue consistently when you ask, and let's say you're indoors in your house, and every time you say sit, your dog is able to sit, then you can start transitioning and using a mix of life rewards with your dog. So if you're able to ask your dog this anywhere in the house, then it's pretty safe to say that they know it, at least in your house, right? Because dogs have trouble generalizing. So if you're able to say sit and they sit and it doesn't matter what you're doing, then it's safe to say you can stop rewarding every single time with a food reward. So you can start doing it with life rewards. So they can sit before their dinner time, they can sit before they go outside or hop in the car or go out the gate. They can sit before they come up on the couch. There's tons of ways that you can reward the sit behavior, even with just attention, eye contact, petting them, etc. So you can create that reward for them and use what they want, any motivator that they want. Usually it's attention, so that they can sit for attention. So you can mix the treats in with the life rewards as well. So your dog's environment will always be rewarding your dog. So if you stop rewarding them yourself, they will repeat behaviors that are being reinforced. So even if it means digging a hole in your backyard or chasing a squirrel, even when you're calling them, just like humans need a paycheck to continue doing their job and striving to do a good job and getting human feedback, dogs need one too. And the biggest motivator for dogs is food. So you need to reinforce your dog's good behaviors, because once you stop reinforcing them, they're going to find different ways to be reinforced. And, this happens quite often when we're talking about recall with our dogs. Once our puppies become, kind of in the teenage stage of doghood, then they'll start to kind of wander and get a little bit more independent. And this is when we need to reinforce even more for them to coming to us and building value of them staying around us. Because if we aren't reinforcing them, their environment will be. So those sniffing adventures that they go on, them running away from you, them running and playing with other dogs or greeting other people, those are all rewarding to them. So if they're being rewarded on from things that aren't you, then you are losing that battle of recall right there. If they're being rewarded for just running away is self-rewarding, right? So you need to always make sure that you're practicing and rewarding your dog in some way. Doesn't mean you always need to carry a pocket full of hot dogs, but it does mean that you need to have some kind of reward in your back pocket so that you know what your plan is going to be when you call your dog and reinforce them sticking with you. So you never want to stop rewarding, and you always just want to make sure that you're reinforcing those behaviors that you want to see in your dog. So if your cues ever start falling falling apart and you find them, your dog's just starting to ignore you, then you may be lacking reinforcement in that department. So go back to square one, start training them that cue as if they've never heard it before in a calm environment without distractions, and then see what your dog's response is once you start to give them a little bit of a refresher of the reinforcement they get when they actually do perform that cue successfully. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe if you guys are listening on YouTube, or follow us if you're listening on Spotify, so that you can be notified for our future episodes. Every like and subscribe is free, and it is also a very big support to us for the podcast. You could also comment and let me know what topics you guys would like covered. I have no idea what this audience will want covered, so I'm just kind of brainstorming right now. But if you guys have any questions or you want any topics covered, feel free to let me know in the comments below, or you can head to our social media and let us know on there as well. Don't forget to check out today's episode blog post for some treat ideas and more information, and to download that reward ranking PDF. Also, let us know what your dog's favorite training reward is. Let's get the ideas going for those who may need a little bit more help in the training rewards department. So, with that being said, as always, guys, happy training, one paw at a time.